This is almost the end of 2014, and I've been a Facebook user now for about 5 years. Ever since one of my cousins invited me onto that world-famous social networking platform in 2009. Among the things that I've managed to find on Facebook over the course of that time are interesting places to read about news and other information, new creative outlets such as Bitstrips, games to play including Candy Crush Saga and Bingo Blitz, and of course catching up with old friends, making a few new friends, having fun looking at everyone's photos and videos, and sharing some of my own. But there have been times when I have learned things about my friends that have surprised me greatly, one of them being where they stand politically on any given issues. And as we have all taken our turns sharing, opining, and debating the issues, it has occurred to me that for many people, Facebook is now a major media source, particularly through observation of the broadcast media, which had their beginnings in the 20th century. One of the things that we have come to learn about quote-unquote old media sources, such as books, newspapers, movies, radio, and television, is that not everything that you see, hear, or read can be said to be true. The arrival of the new and varied phenomena of social media in the 21st century appears to follow many of the same paradigms established by the so-called old media sources for information, news, and entertainment. In this computerized information age, where information of all kinds would seem to be at our fingertips if we know where and how to look for it, it can be argued that there's really no reason why people can't be informed if they want or need to be. The saying is that ignorance is no excuse. But it should also be remembered that, because this is the internet, it's certainly no easy task separating the misinformation and disinformation from the solid facts. Nowhere does this seem more readily apparent on Facebook than with the frequent use of posts commonly known as memes. Some memes are meant for entertainment, but others are meant for making political statements. Not all of them are accurate. And I have been forced to wonder over the last 5 years why people keep posting and reposting some of them, especially after I discover for myself some of the stories behind them. With all of that in mind, here are 10 of the most annoying Facebook memes I have seen in the last 5 years, but Facebook users keep posting them anyway. Number 1. You cannot help the poor by destroying the rich. In the wake of the Occupy Wall Street movement, Facebook users, especially conservatives, have been circulating this passage believing it to be the words of the first Republican president, Abraham Lincoln. You cannot bring about prosperity by discouraging thrift. You cannot strengthen the weak by weakening the strong. You cannot help the wage earner by bringing down the wage payer. You cannot further the brotherhood of man by encouraging class hatred. You cannot help the poor by destroying the rich. You cannot keep out of trouble by spending more than you earn. You cannot build character and courage by taking away man's initiative and independence. You cannot help men permanently by doing for them what they could and should do for themselves. These words are very deep, and they certainly sound like something that President Lincoln might have said or written, except that he didn't. Research shows that these words were in fact written and published by the Reverend William John Henry Bettger, a Presbyterian minister, in 1916, a full 50 years after Lincoln died, in a pamphlet called The 10 Cannots. While we do know that Reverend Bettger also included some real Lincoln quotes among his writings, this is not one of them. Number 2. The Offensive Pledge of Allegiance. Frequently shared from a Facebook page titled The Comical Conservative, this meme posts the familiar words of the Pledge of Allegiance, as it has been known since the mid-20th century, and adds, "My generation grew up reciting this every morning with my hand on my heart. They no longer do that for fear of offending someone. Let's see how many Americans will repost and not care about offending someone." This is most frequently shared by people who don't like the fact that some people think the words, "under God," shouldn't be in the Pledge of Allegiance. Of course, they were added to the pledge in 1954 so that the capitalist USA could say with a straight face that it was a greater country than the communist USSR during the Cold War. But according to a blog titled Millard Fillmore's Bathtub, only 45 of our 50 states require the Pledge of Allegiance in public schools. The 5 exceptions are Iowa, Hawaii, Oklahoma, Vermont, and Wyoming. None of these 5 states previously required the pledge and then stopped, nor do they claim to not require the pledge, in order to avoid offending anyone. The author of Millard Fillmore's Bathtub says, quote, The creator of that poster is probably well under the age of 50, and may have grown up with the hand-over-heart salute used after World War II. That was not the original salute, and I'd imagine the author is wholly ignorant of the original and why it was changed. For my part, whenever I see this meme, I always think the same thing. If only people had this much passion for making sure that their kids have everything they need to survive in America, as they do for making sure that their kids say the Pledge of Allegiance. Number 3. Triple toss-up. Guns don't kill people, people kill people, my gun, and concerned student. In a country where school shootings happen on a fairly regular basis because nobody in authority does anything about them, these are frequently shared as arguments against gun control. If there was ever a bright, shiny, overused, worn-out object that people are frequently attracted to in political discourse, it is guns don't kill people, people kill people. The problem is that guns are, by their very nature, designed for the purpose of killing living animals and people. Arguments about self-defense versus premeditated murder are at best secondary to this discussion. I submit that to deny that guns are for killing is to deny the reason for the existence of guns. The implication of this My Gun letter would seem to be that guns are 100% safe when people use them carefully. That would be perfectly fine if it were not for the fact that gun accidents can still happen. Children can still get seriously injured while playing with mommy and daddy's guns. I'm just saying. As for this letter to God by a concerned student, it came hot on the heels of the massacre at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut by Adam Lanza. As a Christian, I consider it offensive. Rather than, why do you allow so much violence in our schools, the questions that I think most people ask God after a shooting incident, believers and non-believers alike, go something like, why do you allow so much violence in this world? Or maybe, why do you allow bad things to happen even if people believe in you? Beyond the obvious church and state separation issue, this meme sends the wrong message by implying that God punishes children who die in school shootings and does nothing to prevent them from happening because he isn't allowed in public schools. On that basis, it doesn't matter to me if God were allowed in public schools or not, because violence would still happen in the world. Prayer and the Bible in schools would not change the fact that people can still choose to do evil, whether they hear the messages of Christianity or not. That's the nature of free will. Number 4. It's a heart problem, not a gun problem. Another frequently shared meme after school shootings makes the claim that Cain killed his brother Abel with a rock, implying that violence and murder are matters of the heart rather than of the weapons used to commit them. But it doesn't quite make sense to me when I consider the Bible verses involved. The meme cites Jeremiah chapter 17 verse 9, which reads, "The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately corrupt, who can understand it?" while ignoring Genesis chapter 4 verse 8, which reads, "And when they were in the field, Cain rose up against his brother and killed him." Given that some Christians believe that the Bible is to be taken literally and is not open to interpretation, this appears to be inconsistent. But whether or not Cain used a rock, his bare hands, or any other kind of weapon to kill his brother is irrelevant anyway. The fact remains that when crimes are committed with guns, there will be people left behind who want things done about guns, and I'm still looking in the Bible for verses about guns. Number 5. I'm 76 or 83, and I'm tired. It is true that some of Bill Cosby's rhetoric has gotten rather incendiary in recent years, particularly regarding the issues of African American life, so it's almost not surprising to see him given credit for a meme that includes the lines, "I'm tired of being told that I have to spread the wealth to people who don't have my work ethic. I'm tired of being told the government will take the money I earned, by force if necessary, and give it to people too lazy to earn it." But according to urbanlegends.com, quote, one version of this message says Bill Cosby is 76, another says he's 83. In September 2011, when people first started attributing the text to him, Cosby was only 74 years old. The sole and actual author, excluding the anonymous perpetrators who have created revised versions of the text over time, was former Massachusetts State Senator Robert A. Hall, who published the original document on his personal blog on February 19, 2009, unquote. For his part, Cosby wrote the following when he learned of this meme's existence. Quote, "There's an email floating around entitled, 'I'm 76 and I'm tired,' purportedly sent by me. I did not write the email, I did not send the email, I'm not 76, and I don't subscribe to the ugly views expressed in the email. We are coming up to an important anniversary on Sunday, which is a day when we should all come together. Whoever wrote this email is not thinking about our country or what is important. If you get the email, it's time to hit delete. The important anniversary that Mr. Cosby refers to was the 10th anniversary of 9/11. Number 6. Convictions versus compassion. Our culture has accepted two huge lies. The first is that if you disagree with someone's lifestyle, you must fear or hate them. The second is that to love someone means you agree with everything they believe or do. Both are nonsense. You don't have to compromise convictions to be compassionate. So says Pastor Rick Warren, author of the best-selling book The Purpose-Driven Life. Strong words, but I often wonder what Pastor Warren would say if I were to ask him what happens when people's convictions actually interfere with their ability to be compassionate. I also wonder how many people who share this meme realize that the lifestyle, which Pastor Warren refers to, is homosexuality, and that much of what he and other Christian conservatives believe the Bible says about homosexuality is based on a modern, misconstrued English translation of the book of Leviticus, among others. For more information, you can watch my video on clobbering biblical gay bashing, with text written by the Reverend Mark Sandlin. Number 7. Support the troops. Of course, with the United States being in a constant state of war for 14 years, it's inevitable that memes like this one keep popping up. But I have found over the course of those years that, while I gratefully support the efforts of our men and women in the armed forces, I'm not very much into flag waving. I haven't been since about 10 years ago, when conservatives started calling liberals unpatriotic and un-American for disagreeing with President George W. Bush and the Iraq War. As Iraq and Afghanistan dragged on, and I kept seeing so many similar memes show up on Facebook, I soon had to ask myself, what is more important now? Is it more important that we keep praying for our fighting soldiers and remember those who have fallen in our hearts and minds as often as we can? Or is it more important that we share memes and wear the stars and stripes on our sleeves just to show everyone else what great Americans we are? Let us not confuse patriotism and love of country with ego and self-aggrandizement. Noted political philosopher Noam Chomsky actually sums it up better than I can. The point of public relations slogans like "support the troops" is that they don't mean anything. That's the whole point of good propaganda. You want to create a slogan that nobody's going to be against and everybody's going to be for. Nobody knows what it means because it doesn't mean anything. Its crucial value is that it diverts your attention from a question that does mean something. Do you support our policy? That's the one you're not allowed to talk about. Number 8. Animals and food stamps. Now, I have to say that this one really hits close to home. I have a permanent disability condition, and while I object strenuously to people who receive food stamps, Medicare, or Social Security being called animals, because I am one of them, I also understand, reluctantly so, that the intended message here is about people who take advantage of the system and not about those in need of these programs. But this meme reared its ugly head this year when it was posted on Facebook by South Dakota Republican Senate candidate Annette Bosworth. Dr. Bosworth is a little bit more well known for the fact that after losing her primary election, she was arrested and charged with perjury and filing false documents related to campaign election laws. This is a rather obvious statement, but it bears repeating. People should be careful about whom they support when it comes to politics. Better luck next time, Dr. Bosworth. Number 9. This is America, we speak English. Here's another one that hits really hard with me, since I happen to be an American who understands and speaks Spanish, and I have been since my high school years. To be perfectly frank, if you're complaining about pressing 1 for English, you have way too much free time on your hands. I could make a whole other video about how I think learning Spanish has been a benefit in my life, and that diversity in languages is just as good for America as diversity in skin colors or religious beliefs. I also think this is the wrong way to deal with immigration issues. English only is a cop-out. It's an excuse for failing to confront immigration in a reasonable manner. Besides, if this is America and we speak English, then why are other languages taught in American schools? Why are foreign language tracks available on American DVDs? And why are Spanish language channels such as Univision and Telefutura available on American cable TV packages? Historically, English only has gotten us into big trouble before, you know. Remember the Dawes Act of 1887 when we tried to Americanize the Indians? And finally, number 10, the fake fetus. The comical conservative strikes again with a post that appears to show a 12-week-old fetus being held in the palm of the hand with the words, "This is what we all look like at 12 weeks in the womb. Legal to kill in all 50 states. Anyone think it's not a person? Pass this along. It might literally save a life." Well, that is pretty thought-provoking, until you go to Snopes.com and learn that, quote, "This image isn't a photograph of a real fetus, it's a picture of a hand-painted resin doll crafted by artist Donna Lee and sold through the One Tiny Life organization for the stated purpose of using them in schools and pregnancy centers to educate prospective mothers. These dolls have been criticized as inaccurate depictions that misleadingly humanize a 12-week-old fetus beyond its actual appearance, with critics pointing out that at the 12-week stage of development, a fetus is smaller, about 2 inches, exhibits much less well-defined features, and has translucent skin. These dolls were the subject of some controversy in October 2011 when they were handed out to Halloween trick-or-treaters in Georgia by a pro-life group, unquote. As far as I'm concerned, the comical conservative is going to have to explain to me what's comical about using an image that has been shown to be false to score political points or win an argument. To me, that's on the same level as plagiarism in writing. Besides, isn't there a commandment in the Bible against this kind of thing? Deuteronomy, chapter 5, verses 8 and 9. "You shall not make for yourself a graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is on the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God." I wonder if that verse applies here. But what do I know? I'm just a liberal. Happy New Year!